Eleanor Whitman checked her watch one more time as she stood outside the gleaming glass doors of the luxury apartment building. It was already past noon, and she was running late for her weekly lunch with Christopher, her only son. At 63, Eleanor had made it a point never to miss their Thursday tradition, no matter how busy her charity work kept her. The doorman recognized her immediately and tipped his hat. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Whitman. Mr. Christopher is expecting you, I assume." "Of course, Thomas. Thank you," she replied with a warm smile, smoothing down her pearl gray dress suit as she headed toward the private elevator that would take her to the penthouse. Eleanor had been doing this same routine for 3 years now, ever since Christopher had made his fortune selling his tech company. The weekly lunches were her idea, a way to make sure her successful but workaholic son didn't completely disappear into his business world. She worried about him sometimes despite his success. Money couldn't buy everything, especially not genuine companionship. That's why she'd been so pleased when Christopher started dating Lily about 8 months ago. The young woman seemed different from his previous girlfriends. She wasn't impressed by his wealth or status. Instead, she worked as an art teacher at a local elementary school and had this wonderful way of making Christopher laugh, really laugh, in a way Eleanor hadn't heard in years. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the 42nd floor. Eleanor pulled out her spare key, the one Christopher had insisted she keep for emergencies. She'd called ahead twice this morning, but both calls had gone straight to voicemail. Christopher was probably in back-to-back meetings again, and Lily might be at school. Still, Eleanor had prepared their usual lunch from her favorite Italian restaurant, and she wasn't about to let the food go to waste. "Hello? Christopher? Lily?" she called out as she stepped into the spacious apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, but Eleanor barely noticed. Something felt different today. The apartment was too quiet, and there was an unusual tension in the air. She set the bags of food on the kitchen counter and listened carefully. That's when she heard it, a soft sniffling sound coming from somewhere deeper in the apartment. Eleanor frowned and followed the sound, her heels clicking against the polished hardwood floors. The sound grew louder as she approached Christopher's bedroom. The door was slightly open and she could hear what sounded like crying. Eleanor's heart began to race. Was someone hurt? Had there been a break-in? "Hello, is someone there?" she called out, her voice shaking slightly. The crying stopped abruptly, followed by complete silence. Eleanor pushed the bedroom door open wider and stepped inside. The room was empty, but the bathroom door was closed and she could see a sliver of light underneath. "Lily, sweetheart, is that you?" Eleanor approached the bathroom door slowly. "Are you all right, dear?" She heard a sharp intake of breath, then Lily's voice thick with tears. "Mrs. Whitman, I didn't know you were coming today. I always come on Thursdays, remember? For lunch with Christopher." Eleanor tried to keep her voice calm and soothing. "Can you open the door, sweetheart? I'm worried about you." There was a long pause, then the sound of something clattering to the floor. Eleanor heard Lily curse softly under her breath. "Everything's fine," Lily called out, but her voice cracked on the last word. "I'll be out in just a minute." But everything was clearly not fine. Eleanor had raised a son and had been around young women most of her life through her charity work. She knew the sound of someone in distress, and Lily was definitely in distress. "I'm not going anywhere until you open this door," Eleanor said firmly but kindly. "Whatever's wrong, we can figure it out together." After another long moment, Eleanor heard the bathroom door unlock. It opened slowly, and what Eleanor saw made her gasp out loud. Lily stood there with scissors in her right hand, her beautiful long dark hair falling in uneven chunks around her feet. Her hair, which had once flowed like silk all the way down to her waist, was now chopped off in jagged, uneven pieces. Some sections were barely shoulder length, while others had been cut so short they barely reached her chin. Tears streamed down Lily's face and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Oh, my dear God," Eleanor whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "Lily, what are you doing?" Lily looked down at the scissors in her hand as if she was surprised to see them there. I had to," she said quietly. "I couldn't wait anymore." Eleanor stepped carefully around the piles of hair scattered across the bathroom floor. The beautiful strands looked like dark silk ribbons that had been carelessly tossed aside. "Wait for what, sweetheart? What's happening?" Instead of answering, Lily raised the scissors again, grabbing another section of hair. Eleanor quickly reached out and gently took the scissors from her hand. "No, stop," Eleanor said firmly. Whatever this is about, destroying your beautiful hair isn't going to solve it. Lily crumpled against the bathroom wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor among her fallen hair. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "Nobody understands." Eleanor knelt down beside her, not caring that her expensive suit was now touching the bathroom floor. She'd seen Lily laugh, smile, and even get frustrated before, but she'd never seen her like this. The young woman looked broken, defeated in a way that frightened Eleanor. "Then help me understand," Eleanor said softly, reaching out to touch what remained of Lily's hair. "Talk to me, sweetheart. What's so terrible that you felt you had to do this?" Lily shook her head violently. I can't tell anyone yet." Eleanor looked around the bathroom and noticed something else that made her heart sink. There were smaller scissors on the counter, nail scissors, and it was clear that Lily had been planning to continue her work even after Eleanor had taken the larger scissors away. "Where's Christopher?" Eleanor asked, though she was pretty sure she already knew the answer. "Business trip," Lily whispered. "He's been gone for 4 days. Won't be back until tomorrow evening." That explained why Eleanor's calls had gone to voicemail. Christopher always forwarded his calls to his assistant when he traveled, and he'd obviously forgotten to mention that Eleanor would be stopping by. Eleanor sat down fully on the bathroom floor, pulling Lily into her arms the way she used to comfort Christopher when he was small and scared. "Listen to me, sweetheart. I don't know what's wrong, but I know that you're hurting. And I know that my son loves you more than he's ever loved anyone. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together." Lily cried harder, leaning into Eleanor's embrace. "I'm so scared," she whispered. Eleanor held her tighter, her own eyes filling with tears as she looked at the destruction around them. Something was very, very wrong, and she had a terrible feeling that it was much bigger than a bad haircut. Eleanor held Lily close for several minutes, feeling the young woman's body shake with sobs. When the crying finally began to slow down, Eleanor gently pulled back and looked at Lily's face. Her eyes were puffy and red, and there were still tears rolling down her cheeks. "All right, sweetheart," Eleanor said softly, brushing a tear from Lily's face. "The first thing we need to do is get you cleaned up. Then we're going to fix this hair situation." Lily shook her head immediately. "No, you can't fix it. Nobody can fix it." "Nonsense," Eleanor said, standing up and brushing off her suit. "I've been dealing with hair disasters for over 40 years. When Christopher was 7, he decided to give himself a haircut the night before school pictures. It looked like a lawnmower had attacked his head." Despite everything, Lily let out a small, shaky laugh. "What did you do?" "I called my hairstylist at 5 in the morning and begged her to perform a miracle," Eleanor said, helping Lily to her feet. And she did. By the time Christopher got to school, he looked like a little prince. Eleanor carefully guided Lily out of the bathroom, stepping around the scattered hair. Once they were in the bedroom, she sat Lily down on the edge of the bed and grabbed her phone from her purse. "I'm calling Isabella right now," Eleanor said, scrolling through her contacts. "She's been my hairstylist for 15 years and she's worked miracles before." "Mrs. Whitman, please don't," Lily said, reaching for Eleanor's phone. "You don't understand. I need it to be short. I need it all gone." Eleanor paused, her finger hovering over Isabella's number. "Why, sweetheart? Why do you need it gone?" Lily looked down at her hands, which were still trembling slightly. I can't explain right now, but please don't call anyone. Don't try to save it." Eleanor studied Lily's face carefully. In all the months she'd known this young woman, she'd never seen her like this. Lily was usually so confident, so full of life. She had this way of lighting up a room when she walked in, and Christopher couldn't take his eyes off her when she was around. But right now, she looked like a completely different person. "All right," Eleanor said finally, putting her phone back in her purse. "I won't call Isabella if you don't want me to. But I am going to call Christopher." "No," Lily said quickly, grabbing Eleanor's arm. "Please, Mrs. Whitman, he can't know about this." "Not yet," Eleanor frowned. "Lily, he's going to notice when he gets home tomorrow. You can't hide this from him." "I know," Lily whispered. I need more time. I need to figure out how to tell him." "Tell him what?" Eleanor asked gently. "What's really going on here?" Lily stood up abruptly and walked over to the window, staring out at the city below. "I can't tell you, not yet. I'm sorry." Eleanor watched her for a moment, then made a decision. She pulled out her phone and started dialing. "Who are you calling?" Lily asked, turning around quickly. "My doctor," Eleanor said. Dr. Phillips has been taking care of my family for 20 years. If something's wrong, he can help. I don't need a doctor, Lily said, but her voice lacked conviction. Eleanor held up a hand as someone answered the phone. Hello, this is Eleanor Whitman. I need to speak with Dr. Phillips immediately, please. It's an emergency. Lily rushed over and tried to take the phone, but Eleanor gently moved away. Yes, I'll hold. Mrs. Whitman, please hang up, Lily pleaded. I'm fine. I'm not sick or anything. Eleanor looked at her closely. Are you sure about that? Something flickered across Lily's face, fear maybe or guilt. She looked away quickly. I'm sure. Eleanor was put on hold for several minutes. While she waited, she kept watching Lily, who had started pacing back and forth across the bedroom. The young woman kept running her hands through what was left of her hair, as if she was surprised by how short it was. You know, Eleanor said thoughtfully, when I was about your age, I did something very similar. Lily stopped pacing. You cut off all your hair? I did, Eleanor nodded. It was right before I married Christopher's father. I was so nervous about the wedding, about becoming a wife, about all the changes coming in my life. One night I just grabbed a pair of scissors and started cutting. What happened? Eleanor smiled at the memory. My mother found me sitting on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m, covered in hair and tears. She was furious at first, but then she realized how scared I was. She helped me understand that cutting my hair wasn't going to solve my problems. But this is different, Lily said quietly. How is it different? Eleanor asked. Before Lily could answer, Dr. Phillips came on the line. Eleanor? What's the emergency? Hello, Dr. Phillips. I'm with a young woman who's in distress and I'm worried about her. She's done something concerning to herself. Lily was shaking her head frantically and mouthing no over and over again. What kind of concerning behavior? Dr. Phillips asked. Eleanor looked at Lily, who looked absolutely terrified. Something was definitely wrong, but Eleanor could see that pushing too hard right now might make things worse. You know what, Dr. Phillips? I think I may have overreacted. Let me call you back if we need you. Are you sure, Eleanor? If someone's in crisis, I'm sure. Thank you for taking my call. Eleanor hung up and looked at Lily, who had sagged with relief. Thank you, Lily whispered. I didn't do that for you, Eleanor said firmly. I did it because I can see that you're already scared enough. But Lily, whatever's happening, you can't go through it alone. Lily walked back over to the bed and sat down heavily. I know, I need a little more time. Eleanor sat down beside her. How much time? Just until Christopher gets home tomorrow. Then I'll tell both of you everything. Eleanor studied her face. Promise me? I promise. Eleanor wasn't entirely satisfied with that answer, but she could see that Lily was at her breaking point. Pushing any harder might cause her to completely shut down. All right, Eleanor said, but until then you're not staying here alone. I'm not leaving you. You don't have to do that, Lily protested. Yes, I do, Eleanor said firmly. You're important to Christopher, which makes you important to me. And right now you need someone to take care of you. Lily's eyes filled with tears again. Why are you being so kind to me? Eleanor reached over and took Lily's hand. Because that's what mothers do, sweetheart. We take care of the people our children love. As the afternoon wore on, Eleanor stayed true to her word. She ordered groceries to be delivered, made Lily eat some soup, and even convinced her to take a shower. But through it all, she couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. And she had less than 24 hours to prepare for it. Eleanor woke up on Christopher's couch at 6 a.m, her neck stiff from sleeping in an awkward position. She'd insisted on staying the night, and Lily had been too exhausted to argue. The apartment was quiet, but something had woken her up. She listened carefully and heard soft crying coming from the bedroom. She found Lily sitting on the edge of the bed, still in the oversized t-shirt she'd worn to sleep. In her hands were several long strands of her hair that she must have found scattered around the room the day before. I used to brush it every night, Lily said without looking up. 100 strokes, just like my grandmother taught me when I was little. Eleanor sat down beside her, her heart aching at the sadness in Lily's voice. It was beautiful hair, sweetheart. Christopher loved it, Lily whispered. He used to play with it while we watched movies. He'd braid it sometimes, though he was terrible at it. She let out a shaky laugh. He'd get so frustrated when it wouldn't stay together. Eleanor reached over and gently took the strands of hair from Lily's hands. He's going to love you just as much with short hair, you know. Lily shook her head. You don't understand. It's not about the hair. Not really. Then what is it about? Eleanor asked softly. Lily was quiet for so long that Eleanor thought she wasn't going to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm sick, Mrs. Whitman. Eleanor felt her stomach drop. What kind of sick, sweetheart? Lily closed her eyes tightly, as if saying the words out loud would make them more real. I have cancer. The words hung in the air between them like a physical weight. Eleanor felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She'd suspected something serious was wrong, but hearing it confirmed made everything feel surreal. Oh, Lily, Eleanor breathed, reaching for her hand. When did you find out? 3 weeks ago, Lily said, tears streaming down her face. I went to the doctor because I'd been feeling tired all the time, and my stomach kept hurting. I thought maybe I had an ulcer or something from stress at work. Eleanor squeezed her hand tightly. What did the doctor say? It's ovarian cancer, Lily said, her voice breaking completely. They caught it early, they think, but I have to start chemotherapy next week. Really aggressive treatment. Eleanor felt tears welling up in her own eyes. This beautiful, vibrant young woman who had brought so much joy into her son's life was facing something no one should have to face, especially not at her age. That's why you cut your hair, Eleanor said, understanding flooding through her. Lily nodded miserably. The doctor said I'd lose it anyway, all of it. Within the first few weeks of treatment. I couldn't stand the thought of it just falling out in clumps. I wanted to have some control over it, you know. Eleanor pulled Lily into her arms, holding her tightly as she cried. Oh, sweetheart, you've been carrying this alone for 3 whole weeks? I didn't know how to tell anyone, Lily sobbed against Eleanor's shoulder. I kept thinking maybe the doctors were wrong, maybe if I waited a little longer it would all just go away. Does anyone else know? Your family? Lily pulled back and shook her head. My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. I don't have any brothers or sisters. It's just me. Eleanor's heart broke even more. What about your friends? I have friends, but nobody really close. Not close enough for this. Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Christopher is the closest family I have, and I don't know how to tell him. Eleanor understood now why Lily had been so terrified when she'd tried to call Christopher the day before. You're scared he'll leave? I'm scared he'll stay, Lily said quietly. He'll stay because he's a good person, but not because he wants to. Who wants to be with someone who's sick? Who wants to deal with chemotherapy in hospitals and all the horrible things that are coming? Eleanor took Lily's face in her hands, making sure she was looking directly at her. Listen to me very carefully, Lily. My son loves you more than I've ever seen him love anyone. When he looks at you, his whole face lights up. That's not going to change because you're sick. But what if the treatment doesn't work? Lily whispered. What if I get sicker? What if I die? Eleanor felt like her heart was being squeezed in a vice. She'd never had to help someone so young face their own mortality before. Then he'll be there with you through all of it. Because that's what love means, sweetheart. It means staying through the good times and the terrible times. Lily cried harder. I'm so scared, Mrs. Whitman. I'm so scared of the treatment, and I'm scared of telling Christopher, and I'm scared of being a burden on everyone. You're not a burden, Eleanor said firmly. You're family, and families take care of each other. But I'm not really family, Lily protested. We've only been together 8 months. Time doesn't matter, Eleanor said. I knew you were special the first time Christopher brought you to dinner. He'd never brought anyone home before, you know. Not once in all his 32 years. Lily looked surprised. Really? Really? He told me that night that he thought he was going to marry you someday. Eleanor smiled through her tears. He said he'd never been more sure of anything in his life. Fresh tears rolled down Lily's cheeks, but these seemed different somehow. Less desperate, maybe. I start chemotherapy on Monday, Lily said quietly. They want to do it 3 days a week for 12 weeks, then see how much the tumor has shrunk. Eleanor nodded. Then we'll make sure you have everything you need. The best doctors, the most comfortable treatment center, whatever it takes. Mrs. Whitman, I can't let you pay for my medical treatment. You can't stop me, Eleanor said with a small smile. I've been looking for something meaningful to spend Christopher's father's life insurance money on for years. This is it. They sat together in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both processing everything that had been said. Finally, Eleanor spoke again. When are you going to tell Christopher? Tonight when he gets home, Lily said. I promise. I can't keep this secret anymore. Eleanor squeezed her hand. Do you want me to be here when you tell him? Lily considered this. Would you? I think it might be easier if you're here. Of course I will. We'll get through this together, all three of us. As the sun came up over the city, Eleanor held Lily close and tried to be strong for both of them. But inside, her mind was racing with everything that needed to be done, all the ways she could help, and all the prayers she was going to say for this brave young woman who had already become like a daughter to her. Eleanor spent most of Friday helping Lily prepare for Christopher's return. They went shopping for a soft scarf to cover Lily's uneven hair, and Eleanor convinced her to let a stylist at least trim it so it looked more intentional. By the time they got back to the apartment, Lily looked better, but Eleanor could see the nervousness growing in her eyes as evening approached. He texted that his flight landed an hour ago, Lily said, checking her phone for the 10th time in 5 minutes. He should be here soon. Eleanor was setting out Chinese takeout containers on the dining table, trying to make everything feel as normal as possible. Are you ready for this conversation? Lily touched the soft blue scarf wrapped around her head. I don't think anyone's ever ready for a conversation like this. You're right, Eleanor agreed. But sometimes the hardest conversations are the most important ones. They heard the sound of a key in the front door lock, and both women froze. Eleanor watched as all the color drained from Lily's face. Lily. Mom, I'm home. Christopher's voice echoed through the apartment, cheerful and full of energy. Sorry I'm so late. The flight was delayed, but I brought Thai food from that place you love. Eleanor could hear him moving around in the entryway, probably dropping his bags and hanging up his jacket. Lily grabbed Eleanor's hand and squeezed it tightly. You can do this, Eleanor whispered. Christopher appeared in the dining room doorway, still wearing his business suit and carrying bags of food. His face lit up when he saw them both. There are my two favorite women. Mom, thanks for keeping Lily company while I was gone. I know she gets lonely when I travel. He walked over to kiss Lily on the cheek but stopped short when he got a good look at her. His smile faded slowly as he took in the scarf wrapped around her head and the way she was avoiding his eyes. What's going on? He asked, looking back and forth between them. Why are you both looking at me like that? Eleanor watched her son carefully. Christopher had always been observant, even as a child. He could sense when something was wrong before anyone else in the room. And why are you wearing a scarf inside? He asked Lily gently. Are you feeling okay? You look pale. Lily's hands were shaking as she reached up to touch the scarf. I need to tell you something. Christopher immediately sat down across from her, his business mask falling away completely. What's wrong? Did something happen while I was gone? Not exactly, Lily said quietly. It's been happening for a while. I didn't know how to tell you. Eleanor could see Christopher's mind racing, trying to figure out what could be so serious. His eyes kept going back to the scarf on Lily's head. Just tell me, he said softly. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Lily took a deep breath, and Eleanor could see her gathering all her courage. Slowly, she reached up and unwrapped the scarf from her head. Christopher's reaction was immediate. His eyes went wide, and he leaned back in his chair as if he'd been physically hit. Your hair, he breathed. Lily, what happened to your hair? Where once there had been beautiful long hair that reached almost to her waist, now there was barely 2 inches left. The stylist had done her best to even it out, but it was still obviously a dramatic change. I cut it, Lily said simply. You cut it? All of it? Christopher looked genuinely shocked. But you loved your hair. You always said it was your best feature. I had to cut it, Lily said, her voice starting to shake. I had to cut it because... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Eleanor could see that she was losing her nerve. Because why? Christopher asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. Lily, you're scaring me. What's going on? Eleanor decided to step in. Christopher, maybe you should sit closer to her for this conversation. Something in her tone must have warned him that this was serious. Really serious. He immediately moved his chair around the table so he was sitting right next to Lily. Whatever it is, just tell me, he said, taking both of her hands in his. We're together, okay? Whatever's wrong. We'll face it together. Lily looked at him for a long moment, memorizing his face, and Eleanor could see her making a final decision. I have cancer, Lily said quietly. The words seemed to echo in the quiet apartment. Christopher went completely still as if he hadn't heard her correctly. What? He whispered. I have ovarian cancer, Lily said, tears starting to roll down her cheeks. I found out 3 weeks ago. I start chemotherapy on Monday. Eleanor watched her son's face as the news hit him. She'd seen him handle million-dollar business deals with complete calm, but right now he looked like a lost child. 3 weeks ago, he repeated slowly. You've known for 3 weeks? Lily nodded miserably. I didn't know how to tell you. Christopher stared at her, and Eleanor could see him processing the information. That's why you cut your hair. The doctor said I'd lose it anyway during treatment. I couldn't stand the thought of it just falling out, so She gestured helplessly at her head. I wanted to control at least one part of this. Christopher was quiet for such a long time that Eleanor began to worry. Finally, he spoke. Are you going to be okay? His voice was so quiet she could barely hear him. I don't know, Lily answered honestly. The doctors think they caught it early, but they won't know how well the treatment is working until we're several weeks in. Christopher let go of her hands and stood up abruptly. For a moment, Eleanor thought he might leave the room, but instead he started pacing back and forth behind his chair. I can't believe this, he said, running his hands through his own hair. I can't believe you've been dealing with this alone for 3 weeks. I wasn't completely alone, Lily said, glancing at Eleanor. Your mother found me yesterday when I was finishing cutting my hair. She's been taking care of me. Christopher stopped pacing and looked at his mother as if seeing her for the first time. You knew? I found out yesterday, Eleanor said. She made me promise not to call you until she was ready to tell you herself. Christopher sank back down into his chair, looking overwhelmed. Cancer, he said, as if testing the word. You have cancer. Lily nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Christopher. I know this isn't what you signed up for when we started dating. That seemed to snap Christopher out of his shock. He looked at her with an expression Eleanor had never seen before, fierce and protective and full of love. Don't you dare apologize, he said firmly. Don't you dare apologize for being sick. Eleanor felt tears in her own eyes as she watched her son transform from shocked to determined in a matter of seconds. 4 months later, Eleanor found herself standing in the same bathroom where she'd first discovered Lily cutting her hair. But this time, the scene was completely different. Lily was sitting on a small stool in front of the mirror, while Eleanor gently brushed what remained of her hair after the latest round of chemotherapy. It's getting thicker, Eleanor said with satisfaction, running the soft brush through the short, wispy strands. Dr. Martinez said that's a really good sign. Lily smiled at Eleanor's reflection in the mirror. You say that every week, even when there's barely anything to brush. Because it's true every week, Eleanor replied stubbornly. And look at this little curl right here. That's definitely new. They developed this routine over the past few months. Every Friday morning, Eleanor would come over and help Lily get ready for her weekend. Sometimes that meant helping her pick out scarves when she felt self-conscious about her hair. Other times, like today, it meant celebrating the small signs that her body was healing. Where's Christopher this morning? Eleanor asked, though she already knew the answer. Kitchen making his famous pancakes, Lily said with a laugh. He's convinced that if he feeds me enough blueberry pancakes, I'll get better faster. Eleanor smiled. Her son had surprised her with how well he'd handled everything. The night Lily told him about the cancer, Eleanor had worried he might be too overwhelmed to be the support Lily needed. Instead, he'd stepped up in ways that made her proud to be his mother. He took the whole day off work again, Eleanor asked. The whole weekend, actually. He says Fridays are for family now. Lily's voice was soft with affection. I keep telling him he doesn't need to rearrange his entire life for me, but he won't listen. Eleanor set down the brush and met Lily's eyes in the mirror. That's because he loves you, sweetheart.
When you love someone, their problems become your problems.
Their healing becomes your healing. I'm starting to understand that, Lily said quietly. I spent so many years being independent, taking care of myself. I never realized how much better life could be when you let people take care of you too. Eleanor leaned down and hugged Lily from behind. You've taught him something too, you know. Before you got sick, Christopher was so focused on work that he forgot how to just be present with people. Now he actually turns his phone off during dinner. They heard Christopher's voice calling from the kitchen. Ladies, pancakes are ready. And I made extra bacon because Mom always steals mine. I do not steal your bacon. Eleanor called back, but she was already smiling. As they walked toward the kitchen, Eleanor noticed that Lily moved with more energy than she'd had in weeks. The latest test results had been encouraging. The tumor had shrunk by 60%, and Dr. Martinez was optimistic about the next phase of treatment. Christopher was standing at the stove, flipping pancakes with the concentration of a surgeon. He'd learned to cook during these past months, determined to make sure Lily was eating well. Eleanor had to admit he'd gotten pretty good at it. Perfect timing, he said, sliding a stack of pancakes onto Lily's plate. I added extra blueberries, just how you like them. Lily stood on her tiptoes to kiss his cheek. You're spoiling me. That's the plan, Christopher said, wrapping his arms around her waist. I have 4 months of spoiling to catch up on. Eleanor watched them together and felt her heart swell with happiness. The past few months had been difficult, but they'd also brought them closer together as a family. She'd moved into the guest room temporarily to help with Lily's care, and what had started as a practical arrangement had become something much more meaningful. Oh, I almost forgot, Lily said, pulling away from Christopher and walking over to the kitchen counter. Look what came in the mail yesterday. She held up a thick envelope with the letterhead of the elementary school where she taught. What is it? Eleanor asked. A card from my students, Lily said, her eyes lighting up. And look at this. She opened the envelope and pulled out dozens of colorful drawings. There were pictures of Lily with long hair, short hair, no hair, and every variation in between. But in every single drawing, she was smiling. This one's my favorite, Lily said, holding up a crayon drawing. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands. A tall one labeled Mr. Christopher, a medium one labeled Miss Lily, and a shorter one with gray hair labeled Grandma Eleanor. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. They drew me as your grandma? I may have mentioned that you've been taking care of me like family, Lily said with a shy smile. I hope that's okay. Eleanor couldn't speak for a moment. In just 4 months, this young woman had become the daughter she'd never had. It's more than okay, sweetheart. Christopher looked at the drawing over Eleanor's shoulder. Actually, Mom, that reminds me. I have something to ask both of you. He walked over to the kitchen island and picked up a small velvet box that Eleanor hadn't noticed before. Her breath caught in her throat. I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks trying to figure out the right time, Christopher said, his voice shaking slightly. But then I realized there is no perfect time for something like this. Lily stared at the box, her hand flying to her mouth. The past 4 months have shown me what really matters, Christopher continued. It's not business deals or money or any of the things I used to think were important. It's this. It's family. It's taking care of each other. He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. Lily, will you marry me? Will you let me take care of you for the rest of our lives? Whether that's 50 years or 5 years or whatever we get? Lily burst into tears, happy tears this time. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course. As Christopher slipped the ring onto her finger, Eleanor wiped away her own tears. She thought about that day 4 months ago when she'd found Lily in the bathroom, scared and alone and cutting off all her beautiful hair. At the time, it had seemed like such a tragedy. Now she understood that it had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. Sometimes the most broken moments were actually when the healing started. All right, Eleanor said, clapping her hands together. These pancakes aren't going to eat themselves. And we have a wedding to start planning. As they sat around the table sharing breakfast and making plans for the future, Eleanor looked around at her family. They were different than she'd ever imagined they would be, but they were perfect exactly as they were.